Greetings, YouTube pipe smokers. PlanxtyPipes here, wishing you a happy National Beer Day. In honor of such a festive occasion, I'm drinking a little Green Man Porter. This is brewed in Asheville, North Carolina, which is not too far from me, a couple of hours. It is a porter, nice and dark, as you can see. And it is a good one. It's a little colder tonight than it has been, a little bit. And cool nights make for good porter drinking weather and stout drinking weather, in my opinion. So they were clearing these out at the local grocery store. They were on sale, and I've had them before. Green Man is a good brewery. They brew beers in the British style, which a lot of craft breweries seem to be really intent on doing the hoppiest IPAs that they can, and following the West Coast American style brewing boom. And it's gotten a little better recently, I would say. Maybe 10 years ago, it was really heavily IPA focused. But now there are other breweries doing some kind of cool stuff in the British tradition, or local to me. There's a brewery called Old Mecklenburg Brewery that is brewing beers in the German tradition, following the Rheinskebot brewing purity laws of Germany. So I really like IPAs. I like hoppy IPAs. I've got nothing against them, but the older I get and the more beer I drink, the more that I just tend to lean more towards more balanced beers than anything that's overly hoppy. Or the new trend is seems to be fruity hopped beers, like tangerine and orange and lemon, putting citrus with the hops, because hops are kind of citrusy anyway. And I like that stuff. Ballast Point has a really good one called Grapefruit Sculpin, if you're into those kind of beers. But Green Man does a lot of cool British style beers. They have good porter, and they have a good ESB, extra special bitter, that's really good. And it's semi-local. There's regional to me, so it's available here. I don't know how widespread their availability is. I don't know if you're outside of North Carolina, if you can get it, but it's good stuff. It goes well with what I'm smoking, which tonight is GL Pease Gaslight. Smoking it in the Castello pot. The number 17 shape. Rusticated Sea Rock Briar. Love that Castello Sea Rock rustication. Good looking pipe. And I like the Castellos tend to have a real open draw, which I really like. And the tobacco and the beer go together really well. These Latakia heavy blends tend to go really well with porters and stouts, in my opinion. They have a lot of complementary flavors. The beer has a kind of nutty, kind of oily. Most good porters tend to have that kind of oily thing about them to me. They tend to be very roasty, chocolate notes, nutty notes, almost some coffee in a, not as much as like a Guinness or something like that, but a little bit of a coffee flavor. And it goes well with the kind of smoky, savory, spicy incense that Gaslight has. And Gaslight is very well balanced blends. It's one of my favorite blends to smoke. So I'll do a little mini review of that now. It's it's Latakia heavy. It's Latakia forward. It's not overpoweringly smoky. It's got that smoky, peaty Latakia up front. There's an underlying sweetness from the Virginias, but it's very pulled back. And the Orientals are kind of pushing forward with the Latakia, and they kind of go back and forth between which one's the most forward as you smoke. The Orientals are very incense, very kind of a little bit sour without being overly sour. Just a hint of sourness and that kind of cooling, drying mouth feel. There's definitely Perique in the retrohale. You can get a little bit of that peppery spice. The Virginias are red Virginias. And they've got that underlying sweetness without being overly sweet. Just a little hint of sweetness. The Latakia is kind of ever present. That smoky bass tone. It definitely has the typical wood fire, woodsy flavor and aroma. Nicotine's probably medium to medium low. It's not a real nicotine heavy blend. It definitely benefits from some aging. Leave it in the tin for a while before you open it. I bought 3 tins when I first bought it. It wasn't right after it was released, maybe a year after it came out. Bought 3 tins of it, and opened one and smoked it right away. I was kind of on the fence about it. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't one of my favorite English blends. Since it just went out, I'll talk about the fact that it is a little more difficult to smoke than most English blends, in my opinion. It benefits from some drying time. It comes a little damp. It's in cakes, brownies, kind of. They look like brownies. But they're a little bit moist, and they benefit from a little drying. You don't want it too dry. It benefits from being packed kind of loosely and tamped very lightly and smoked slow. It's definitely not as easy to smoke as like a typical Dunhill ribbon cut. It takes a little more maintenance. Might go out on you a few more times. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not overly difficult, but it is more difficult than most. Definitely worth it. After a year or two of aging, then that's when it gets really good. It starts to mellow a little bit and become a little more balanced. The Latakia and the Perique are kind of more up front when it's newer, I think, and they kind of pull back just a hair and balance out the blend a little better. The Virginias sweeten up a little bit. It kind of takes it from being a little bit unbalanced in a kind of layered way to kind of marrying everything together and just becoming a good blend that you can see was the original intent. It just overall smooths out and gets much more enjoyable. There's a little bit of like an anise flavor aroma to it. Not very heavy. I'm not a huge black licorice fan, but I like a little bit of that anise in an English blend. It tends to be pretty widespread among Englishes. I tend to get that a lot. It's also got kind of a creosote, charred carbon note about it. Not in a bad way. Like Scotch whiskey tends to have, if it's an Islay Scotch that's got that peaty kind of carbony underlying note. It's not overly pungent. It doesn't get in the way like, oh my gosh, this is like smoking blacktop or anything like that. It's nice. It's a good old style English. And it's become one of my favorites. Even in the beginning when I was kind of up in the air about it, there's something that always drew me back to it. First of all, it's got a great name. Gaslight is extremely evocative to me. You think of the old cobblestone streets of London lit by gaslights around the early 1900s. It's got great tin art. I showed that in my tin art video. I don't have the tin handy here. I'd show it again, but it's the presentation's good. It comes in two 1 ounce kind of cakes, pressed cakes that look like, I mean, it really does look kind of like a brownie. So I like to slice it across the grain, very thin, as thin as I can, with a sharp knife, and then spread it out on a paper plate or something, let it dry out for half an hour. It should take a little bit of the moisture out and make it a little bit easier to smoke. But overall, very nice. Recommend it if you like Latakia blends. I don't know if I'd recommend it as a first Latakia blend just because it's kind of hard to, like I said, it's more finicky. It needs a little more finesse to smoke. It doesn't taste like Dunhill Nightcap or Penzance, but it's kind of in that same family. Very dark, incensey, traditional English blend. If you buy some, I'd recommend getting a couple of tins. Pop one open, try it. Maybe put it in a mason jar after you open it up. Just kind of pull it out every once in a while, kind of see how it develops, after 6 months. Save the other tin, open it after a year, 2 years, and it'll really hit its peak and just be very well balanced and enjoyable. So yeah, GL Pease Gaslight on a 10-point scale. I put it up there, 8.5, 9, something like that. And Peace is a good company. They're all about their tobaccos. They do a great job coming up with new blends, and with the deeming regulations coming up, that is something that we won't see a lot of in the future probably. So Gaslight is part of the Old English series from GL Pease, and it is one that falls under the deeming regulations. So unless something changes with the law or they pony up, I think it's like $250,000 to put the tobacco through the tests in order to get it approved, it's going to come off the market. So buy some now if you can find it. It's getting hard to find because everybody's buying in anticipation of it being gone. Drink it or smoke it with a good dark beer, a stout or a porter, and taste the way that the flavors interplay with each other. It'll pull out some of the sweetness in the beer. Makes both of them taste better. So yeah, that's my review of GL Pease Gaslight. I hope you enjoyed it. There's lots of reviews of Gaslight out there, so you probably have heard about it before. You've probably seen some reviews. But if you're wondering what kind of tobaccos I like, this is what I like. Stuff like this. Anyway, this is PlanxtyPipes wishing you all the best. Cilantro. Until next time.